Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Mormonism Live. I'm Radio Free Mormon, joined by Bill Reel, and tonight we have an exciting story. Not a completely unique story nowadays, though, but still something that's definitely worth hearing. A bishop who leaves the LDS church, and a bishop who didn't wait until he was done being a bishop to leave. His name's Don Suda. He's from Georgia. He'll join us with his wife, Vicky, and we'll have them on here in just a few minutes. Bill Reel, my favorite compañero. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, my friend. How was your week?
So busy. It's just amazing. So many things to do, so many projects, so many shows, but I'm loving every minute of it. So the answer to that is busy. Oh, I'm also making life a little bit miserable for our mutual friend, Jonah Barnes.
Yeah, you've been quite hard on him, haven't you?
That's what I've been doing in my spare time. That's been my hobby this week because, of course, he stole my research over a year ago. And more recently, he stole Eldon Watson's research. We've done a couple of shows on that. I think we pretty much nailed that coffin lid down tight. But now people are over there and they're trying to say, oh, well, it wasn't so bad or whatever, and try and let some space get in between it. Hopefully people will forget from his point of view. So I keep bringing up over in the comments section, it's Psych Word Radio. When he shows up, I'll put in the comments, I'll put in, even if it has nothing to do with the subject, I'll just put in there, if Jonah's on there, say, are you going to apologize for stealing Eldon Watson's research, Jonah?
Yeah, he should.
So far, I haven't gotten a response from him.
He should say he's sorry. And they tried to put a little blip in, they added it, which you showed, but he didn't go far enough. And these are the games that apologists play.
Yes, and I've been doing some more research into him, and he actually hates smart people. It's true. We've got a clip that we'll play. It'll be a week from tonight, but he hates smart people. I think he's jealous.
Yeah, he should be. You got to, the hard work it's called hard work for a reason. You have to go looking for things. You have to make connections. If you just plagiarize someone's stuff, that's the easy road. And Jonah Barnes, you, my friend, take the easy road.
He absolutely hates college professors who have ethics about plagiarizing things.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's been my week. How about you, Bill?
Life is good. I think there is, though, something that we should at least mention here. We did this on the newscast, but we probably ought to mention it here for Mormonism Live. I didn't want to break up the middle of your conversation with our bishop and his wife. So we've got exciting news. We mentioned this on the newscast. There's a post-Mormon celebration cruise. It's a week at sea dedicated to everyone who had the courage to question, deconstruct, and rebuild their lives after Mormonism. This embarks out of California near Los Angeles on September 13th, 2026. My birthday's on the 14th. So if you want to party with Bill Reel for his birthday, you ought to attend and register now for this post-Mormon celebration cruise.
What Bill means is bring a gift.
Yeah, please do. Hosted by Radio Free Mormon, Rebecca Biblioteca, and myself, Bill Reel. And I'll just note, we have 50 staterooms reserved. There is already about 10 people who have gotten their rooms, and there's about another 60 people who have requested quotes who are working out their calendar details. So if you want to attend this, you don't have a lot of time. I would highly suggest reaching out, and I'll put the link in the live chat, and I'll also put it in the show notes, but you'll want to reach out to our travel I guess I want to say travel agent, but it's the person who's put this entire event together. And I'll get that information to all of you in the live chat. But if you want to be on a cruise for 7 nights with Radio Free Mormon, Rebecca Biblioteca, and myself late in 2026, you're going to want to get right on that. So there is that. And that is on the way. There's the link at the top, but I will post it here in the chat here in just a second.
I had no idea there was this much interest already. I chalk that up to Rebecca.
The lady who's doing all this for us, she was blown away by how much interest there was quickly. She has not encountered, as she's put events together for various groups, has not encountered this happening so fast. So if you want to go, you're running out of time. I would highly suggest you get those rooms now.
I guess we're kind of a big deal.
We must be.
Okay, so was that everything, Bill? Thank you for bringing that up. And we need to bring that up at the end as well so people know. Because there's like the 60-day window, which is now 58 or something, that has some significance. But let's bring on the stage right now from Georgia, Atlanta, I think, Don and Vicky Suda. How are you doing?
Hi. Hey, how are you?
It's so good to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
You're welcome. How are you feeling? You feeling okay? Did you get some Valium, Don?
Yeah, I've been, this is, I told Vicky if I just start staring at the screen, get stage fright, just shake me a little bit and just,
Well, don't even worry about it. Just pretend it's just you and me and Bill and 244 other people.
Well,
Okay.
I can only see you, so I'll just go
And that
by
will make
this.
you feel so much better. I know.
That's right.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit intimidating. I know.
He's not even telling you about the thousands of people who will watch this after we get done being live. So,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But what the heck? We made contact. I can't remember. I guess you must have reached out to me in some way. And we've been working on this for a number of weeks to get you on the show. And your wife, Vicky, has been kind enough to come on as well to give us the whole story and keep you honest, Don. Now, is it true that you're a bishop in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
I was. Did you say I am?
I said, is it true that you are?
No.
No?
Not any longer.
Have you left the church?
Yes.
Hey, Bill, I got to ask Bill because he knows the answer to this and I don't. Bill, if you're a bishop and then you get excommunicated, are you still a bishop?
they said once a bishop, always a bishop.
They
But
did.
it does feel like there's a caveat there.
There's probably a caveat there.
We still have our membership, with the church. We just, physically left, but
Then you're
I
still
still
a
have
bishop.
my temple recommend.
You should wait. Hang on. But then you're still a bishop under the Mormon rules.
correct.
Okay. So I'll
In
call
fact,
you
they
Bishop
addressed
Suda.
me as bishop when I went back to church for the first time in a year.
I will call you Bishop Suda, and I want to hear about that. But Vicky, you still have your temple recommend.
Yes, I do.
Do you use it?
No.
Why do
No.
you have it?
Well, I just haven't really.
It just hasn't expired.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It hasn't expired.
All right. Well, we want to hear your story, and we want to go back, not all the way back to when you were necessarily little children, but I'm going to go back and forth between the two of you. First off, I want to ask this question. Both of you are converts to the church, correct?
Yes.
We are.
Okay. So if we start with Vicky, can you tell us about your growing up and how it was that you came to be a member of the church?
Well, my parents, they were not real active in any religion. I guess it was Baptist more so. But on special holidays, my mom, she would always, get us dressed and we would go to to church occasionally. Her
Where was
brother was actually a Baptist preacher. My mom.
Was that in the South?
Yes, in Tampa, Florida. Yeah, my mom's brother was a Baptist preacher. And actually, I would go with him to church a lot growing up. And in the summer, they'd have vacation Bible school. Would go to that. We had a lot of fun, But then I started as I got older, I saw things that I didn't really agree with. And one of the things was how he was really nice at church, but then at home, he was a totally different person. And I felt as I got older, I, became to realize, well, that's sort of his job. And so the whole paid clergy thing sort of sat, ill with me. And then as I learned about Mormons, that they didn't have paid clergy, that's one thing that intrigued me,
How did you get in touch with the Mormons?
I actually worked with a woman when I was like 17 in a grocery store, and she was Mormon, but she wasn't active. And she was a very nice lady, but she told me a few things. And anyway, when Don and I were dating, and then marriage came into the picture, when we were planning on getting married, he was Catholic and I was Baptist. He wasn't interested at all in my church. And then when I went with him to his church, it was so foreign to me. And I'm like, let's just start looking at other churches. So we went to Pentecostal churches, non-denominational, just all around. And then one day I got to thinking about what the woman had told me that I worked with. And so I looked up a Mormon church that was, local. And I called the number, and it was Bishop's Residence. It was listed. I guess when you Google it. And
in the yellow pages.
In the yellow.
There wasn't no Google.
Yeah, that's true. That was a long time ago. But that was in 1978, I believe, wasn't it? Because we were baptized in 79.
Right, the year after I was.
Yeah. And so anyways, they immediately put us in touch with the missionaries. And yeah, that was about 2-3 weeks. We ended up taking all the discussions, and we actually went to the church before we started talking to the missionaries. And when we went in, as soon as we walked through the doors, it was like a branch. So they knew right away that, we were visiting.
Mm-hmm.
And they started asking questions. And when they found out Don told them, well, we just came to see how you observe how you worship. Boy, they sat us on the front row and put a missionary on each side of us.
So you couldn't get out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah. And after church, we talked to them. And that's when basically church was all day long, because you went in the morning, but then you went back at 5:00. And anyway, but the missionaries told us, well, what we normally do, we like to teach you discussions, and we set an appointment, and you have us over for dinner.
Oh,
and
really?
Then, yeah, they put that in there.
Yeah.
Well, Don and I weren't married, but he lived behind where I lived. And so I would go back to where he lived, and the missionaries would come over there. But the whole time they were assuming that we lived together. So they were nervous about that.
About teaching the law of chastity.
Mm. Yeah, that's always a touchy thing to teach when you're a missionary.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But anyway, we took the discussions, and after a couple of weeks, then we were baptized. Yeah. None of our family went. They weren't very happy about it.
Well, I want to hear more about this. Can I ask Don about your religious upbringing? Because you got into the church the same way. I mean, this is interesting because it sounds to me like for you, Mormonism was a compromise.
It was. In fact, I wasn't interested in going to really any of the churches. I went to some, but I must have had in the back of my mind, I don't know that I ever knew Mormons or knew a Mormon, but I have this like Quaker look in my mind, and I'm thinking we're going to go in there and they're going to be long beards and black, robes. And
that's only the Mormons that live on the moon.
Well, it must be,
They're the ones that dress like the Quakers.
I just wasn't interested, but I grew up Catholic, very active, altar boy, went to mass every week, confession every Saturday. You had to go confess Saturday so you could partake of the sacrament on Sunday morning, and so.
What did you do Saturday night?
Saturday night, we would just go into the confessional. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned.
Oh, okay. You did that
Pour out
Saturday
your heart.
night.
What's that?
You did that on Saturday night?
Saturday night, and then you could go to, that would make you clean to take the sacrament on Sunday when you went to mass. So
I like it.
So then I was like, whatever, wherever you want to go. I just kind of went along, and I figured she would just lose interest in it, because to me, the Catholic Church was the church. Everything else is the break off from that. So there's no sense in looking anywhere else. It's the Catholic Church.
But at some point you had become disaffected somewhat from the Catholic Church.
Yeah. I mean, I was okay. But then when they taught, hey, this is the Lord's restored church, this is the true church, And so I was excited. I mean, it's like I found gold, I mean, I'm like, we struck oil here, and
you were the same age as the missionaries.
Yeah, I was. And so I told friends, family, cousins, aunts, uncles, and they all looked at me like I had lobsters crawling out of my ears. They were just not interested and were telling us to get away and stay away, And so it was kind of confusing. In fact, we told the missionaries, well, we got a baptism coming up on Thursday. How would y'all like? And
You
we're
just
like,
happen to have
no, we
one
want to give some
scheduled.
time about it. How about Friday? Well, we still really want to. How about Saturday? I was like, what?
Yeah. Oh
So
my
we
God.
actually
Will
ended
you
up
go out
getting
with me tonight?
baptized.
No. How about tomorrow? How about the night after that? He's at some
Yeah.
point, take a hint, guy.
We feel the Spirit. We know you're golden. We know you're just, the Lord was waiting for us to come and teach you. And, we bought in hook, line, and sinker, and you felt good about it. I mean, I didn't have any, and then the one missionary was in tears telling us the story about Joseph Smith. And he said, that's the Spirit. It's testifying to us that this is true. And
You can tell it's true. I'm crying.
yeah, I mean, it was a challenge. So, so we both, we went ahead and so we invited everyone, come to our baptism. Nobody
came
up.
to your baptism?
Nobody, not,
no family. There was a few of the church members, like the ward mission leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was in Tampa.
It was actually Brandon. For those that know the Tampa area, Brandon ward. It was a ward, but it had just become a ward. So it was a very small ward.
Can I ask both of you, starting with Vicky and then moving back to Don, about was this something that, what was it? Let me ask it in Mormon words. It'll be easier that way, okay? Did you consider yourself converted? And if so, what was your conversion experience?
Well, it just seemed everything that they were telling me about, because here I'm engaged, to this man and that I loved. And they're teaching us about you can have eternal families. You'll be, together in the next life.
Mm-hmm.
It was so different from till death do you part. And that really intrigued me. And I felt good about everything they were teaching us, no paid clergy, check, that's right. Christ was a carpenter. He wasn't paid.
And that that was good for you because you were already having a little bit of trouble with the paid clergy thing coming into this, right?
Yeah. And then the eternal families, eternal marriage. Just so many different things. My father was an alcoholic growing up. And so, he had his good times and bad times. He was a Korean War vet. So he would have some PTSD. And anyway, just the whole word of wisdom. At the time, right before we joined the church, and Don and I were just dating, he actually, 19-year-old boy living on his own, and he worked for a liquor company, which he got benefits from that on the weekend. And anyway, but that always sort of bothered me because, I saw the ugly side of alcohol a lot growing up. But,
so, Don, what did you think about being converted to the church? What appealed to you?
A lot of the same things, the eternal, at first, I was, really questioned a lot of things, and they said, pray about it. If it's true, your heart will burn. You'll get a great feeling. If it's not true, you'll get this stupor of thought. So I prayed and about it. And I would read the Book of Mormon and I would pray about it. And I never got any bad feelings. So I thought, well, maybe I'm just not worthy enough for the burning of the bosom kind of thing, but I'm not getting a stupor of thought. And so I kind of felt like, they just seemed so sincere. So I thought I'm going to give it a try. And then the more we got into it, it was, I dug my heels in and just says, okay, this is what we're going to do. And just kind of move forward from there. I just made the commitment to do it.
So you met the missionaries. You were baptized in 79, correct?
Correct. March of 79, right? We walked into the chapel and then that's where we met the missionaries.
All right. And then it must have been at least a year later that you got married in the temple?
Yeah. So we were engaged to be married in October of that same year. That's the date we had set. And so we said, so at first, they gave us a couple weeks to get in there. And then they said, okay, what about a temple marriage? And I was like, oh, a temple marriage, what's that? And they explained that's how you become sealed for time and for all eternity, and the sealing. And I was like, okay, well, where's the temple? You got a temple around here? And they said, yeah, Washington, D.C. And I'm just like, what? No, we're not going all the way to Washington, D.C. But as our testimony started to grow a little bit, that grew on us. I said, okay, well, let's go ahead and set that up for October. And they're like, well, you can't really go in October. You got to be a member a year. So then we thought, no, we're going to offend family and everything else. Let's just do it here. Then they were just pushing it, saying, the Lord wants you to be married in the temple. And that's what the brethren teach us. It's important to get married, sealed. Not just, they said, you get married civilly and you may not make it to the temple. You need to set the goal to go to the temple.
If you don't get married civilly, you may not make it to the temple, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So they said, so that was the big push. So then they said, oh, now you got to wait a year. So we said, all right, 1 year and not a day longer. Well, that didn't work either because that 1 year was on a Monday.
I'm so sorry, but I've already heard 2 stories about pushy Mormons.
Yeah.
Telling you what you're going to do and when you're going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and so we like, okay, how do we break the news? Because we felt like we were going to disappoint our Savior by not doing what he built these temples to do. And
Don's one of 9. I'm one of 6 kids. There's 9 kids in his family and 6 in mine. And we were both the first to be married in each family.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, really?
Mm-hmm.
We were the first to get married and the first to have to bear young. So
very young.
Wanting to explain it to our family.
Is that what they say down there in Georgia? To bear young?
Yeah. Well, so we kept thinking, how can we do this? We kind of put little nuggets out there that we were thinking about getting married in the temple or whatever. So the missionaries go, hey, why don't we have a fireside, invite all the family in and explain that to them about temples and so I'm like, okay, all right. So we did that and we invited family in and whoo, that thing went.
Did they show up?
His father was a drill sergeant in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
So yeah, when Sergeant Suda speaks, he was, and they're like, oh, see what's so important about, and then the whole thing. And this poor missionary, I still remember his name. He got off the plane that afternoon, and this was his first time on the soil in Tampa. He was from Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah. That poor guy, he was just.
What happened?
So yeah, it did not go well at all. They didn't appreciate anything that was taught. They didn't. We had the ward mission leader there trying to with the missionaries as well as but they just it didn't go well. So then we had to stew over that for a little bit as it got closer to the time, and then we finally just told them, hey, look, we've decided we're going to go to the temple, and that was. So we were going to go to the temple, and that meant nobody could go. And my mom was like, well, if you think I'm going to drive all the way to Washington, D.C. just to watch you get married, you can forget it. And I was like, no, Mom, I wouldn't expect that. You get stopped at the front gates anyways. But,
I wanted you to drive all the way to Washington, D.C. so you could sit outside the building while I get married.
Right. I mean, and it was just, I don't know. It's hindsight. We've thought about that as we got older. That's one of the things you kind of regret, because I would have definitely opted to go ahead and get married civilly so all the family could be there and do all the the things, and then we can go to the temple later. You just had to wait another year. At that time, I don't know what
you can do it now.
Yeah, the policy.
God changed his mind about that.
Yeah, back then, just to have a ring ceremony for the family was frowned upon. But now,
I know, I did it.
It's
it's and that we'll get into that. Just what we went through and the things we had to go through, and all that just keeps shifting, and and.
Did anything fun or exciting happen during that year between March of 1979 when you joined and March of 1980 when you got married? Did you get married in March?
March, yeah. Baptized March 24th and married on 25th.
I'll ask that question to Vicky first about the year while you were members before getting married.
Well,
don't tell them about that. No.
Well, anyway, the branch that we were in, it was really, there was a lot of nice, friendly people, and we just started getting really involved in that branch. I got called into primary. They did a lot of branch activities, and we became friends with a lot of the people in that branch, because at that time, it's like we were, especially Don's family, they were more harsh about not communicating. It's like it drew a line in the sand, because he had joined this Mormon church, because his family, they're pretty big partiers, heavy
They're Catholic,
drinkers,
though, right?
Yeah. And I think he made them feel uncomfortable, as far as that goes.
Yeah, it was kind of tough because they wouldn't invite me to, activities and events, even if it was like a birthday party, but they knew they were going to have drinking there, and they felt like, and they had the attitude that, well, we know you think you're better than us. And I'm like, absolutely not. I do not. I've chosen not to. And there was a lot of alcoholism in my family as well. And that was something else I said, look, that's easy for me to turn away from, even though I drank pretty good when you could drink at 18 back then. So it was, it was a challenge.
Well, I tell you what, let's go to the wedding. We've got some pictures here that I happen to have found somewhere, putting them up on the screen. Who are these two young people? Vicki?
Yeah, that was quite a while ago.
1980.
Yeah, 1980.
So what we decided to do, we came back. We got married, and then we went on our honeymoon, and then came back to the ward, and that's in someone's home. One of the women opened up her home to do an open house. Mm-hmm. And so it was still air was a little sticky with all the family coming, but they came. I didn't think my parents were going to come, but they did. They came. And so,
you mean to Washington, D.C. they came?
No, this is back in Tampa. So when we got back to.
Yeah, that's where the open house was. And actually, I was going to insert this as far as the wedding itself. When we were getting ready to leave to go to D.C., Don lived close by, real close to where my parents lived. And the night before we were going to leave, my father, I'd only seen him cry once at at his mother's funeral. He came into my room as I was packing, and he started talking to me, and he handed me some money, and he says, "Here, I want you to have this in case y'all have car trouble when you're going up there." And he started crying. And since that bothered me very badly then, and here we had this, we're leaving the next morning early, and I'm like, I'm breaking my father's heart. And then, the members that we went with, they showed up early to pick us up because we rode with them. But we took one car.
Yeah,
anyway.
I drove, and then somebody else drove. So we had to have chaperones.
Yeah, we had to have chaperones. But as we
thank
drove
God.
off, I turned around and looked.
What trouble you would have gotten into on the way up to Washington, D.C.
Oh, I know.
Here's another photo.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yep.
But as we drove off, I turned around and looked, and my mom was standing out near the driveway, and she was crying. It was just like, that bothered me so bad then, but both of my parents have passed, and, we've left the church, and I would love more than anything to have been able to tell them that we are not in the church anymore, but I can't, and that really bothers me, how sad that made them. And I can imagine my own kids, if they were going to go get married, and I wouldn't be able to even be a part of it.
Vicki, what would you tell your mom and your dad right now, if you could?
Right now, I would say I was sorry that I that I made that bad choice, because I would never want to hurt them. You know, they were good parents, and they, you know, they loved us, and I just really regret that. And I was young, and we feel like we're doing the right thing. And now we stop and look at it, and we're like, what were we thinking, you know?
Yeah, the encouragement was never, well, think of your parents, think of your family. It was always like, think of the church. This is what it's, you know, this is what's required. This is what you're supposed to do. And so
this is what the Lord wants you to do.
Yeah, you know, you might sacrifice some feelings with your family, but you're going to please the Lord, you know, so.
And we were even told your future children will be happy that you're doing this.
Yeah, you're setting a precedence for them, you know, for your future, yeah, for your children. So,
if I could jump in just a second, so much of what you guys are, how you guys are describing your story, I relate to. Joining young, going to the temple, and my family not being able to see their son get married. Something my mom had planned on all her life was seeing her two boys get married. And it had alienated my family in a lot of ways. My mom didn't talk to me for about a year and a half. So we had almost no relationship at all until my ex got pregnant with our first child. And, you know, then mom was turning into a grandma, and she wanted to fix all of that. And so we reconnected. But I am curious. I just want to ask you, RFM, you joined the church as a young person too. You went on a mission. When you got married in the temple, did that alienate your parents at all from you? Because I've never heard you tell that story. I'm just curious if your story has any parts of that align with the three of us.
Yes, I had a ring ceremony, got married in Dallas, and then flew back to Austin for the ring ceremony in the Stake Center, where everybody came who was in my family, because I'm the only Mormon.
Did they have hurt feelings over not being able to go to the temple, or did they not really know that that's...
They did not express that to me, but I suspect that was more being nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a strange thing that the church creates this mechanism where you are forced early on to choose it. If you're a convert, to choose it and be drawn towards it, and to lose or get at least get some distance between you and your parents or your siblings by sort of forcing you to choose Mormonism over doing the right things by your family.
Yeah, for a church that preaches family and eternal family, they sure do a lot to keep them separated. You know, and that's what this picture is here is, you know, both of our parents and, you know, there, but, you know, just not, you know, super happy. Let's just put it that way, you know, because they just, you know, I mean, you know, I'm the oldest boy. I got an older sister, so I'm the oldest son. And then you are the oldest daughter, but you got an older brother. So, but, you know, we were the first of the, you know, to get married in either family, and for us to alienate everybody, you know, aunts, uncles, cousins. I mean, you know, we had a lot of family. You had cousins that lived right close to you, and you know, it's just one of those you know, things you look back on and you're like, had I done it differently?
Yeah.
The blonde in the picture has a bit of a look of disgust. I don't know if she's doing that towards the guy standing next to her on her right, or if it has anything to do with that whole situation.
I asked Vicky earlier when she got me this thing, I said, why is your mom giving your dad the stink eye?
Well, and you know, maybe he had a few drinks before the reception. I'm not sure. But, you know, it was a few years later, my younger sister ended up joining the church because we influenced her a lot.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And my two parents, when they got married, my sister and her fiance, they went to the DC temple to get married. And he was a member. He was a returned missionary.
Yeah.
But of course, her family, you know, I was the only member. Well, my parents, they went with her all the way up to that DC temple and sat outside.
Yeah.
So the church really really drove a stake through their heart, I think, with the marriage of both of their daughters.
Wow. So is your sister still in the church?
No, she left before we did.
About 3 years before, yeah. So
Okay.
And they were very active. She was, they were married in the temple. They sent 2 sons on missions, and her kids, I would say about half of them are active. But
yeah.
Here's a picture. I'm sorry, we got a few pictures, and then we're going to have to talk about how it is that you came to finally become disillusioned and leave the church, even as a bishop. We have a picture. I'm taking this is after the wedding ceremony.
Yeah, quite a few years later, and so it's interesting because they encourage, get married, start having babies right away, right? We kind of took the first year. We just wanted to spend some time together and all that, but then we started having some complications in being able to get pregnant. And don't you remember a woman come up to you and,
oh yeah,
well, let me tell you something, when you guys still aren't having a baby, let me tell you something. The Lord's going to take those spirits he's promised you and he's going to give them to somebody else.
I wish he'd taken mine and given them to somebody else.
I mean, and the thing is, we're struggling with trying to get pregnant, and then you got these busybodies that got to come up there and be the goody two shoes. Think they're this was our first 2. So obviously we got married in March. So in February of 1980, I was ordained an elder.
Yes.
In 1982, I was ordained a 70. So that might surprise some people, but that's back when the 70s used to be in the local wards, local units. So I was ordained a 70, and then I was called as the ward mission leader. And I was also part of the 7 presidents. We went and met every month with the state president. I don't even know what that was, 7 presidents, who they represented, what they represented. But so I was always gone out with the missionaries, teaching people, so that was the responsibility. So we had elders, 70s, and high priests in the local units. High priests were responsible for family history and temples, and the 70s were missionary work. That was, and then the elders were perfecting the saints. That was the threefold mission of the church. You probably remember that. So that's how that was broken down. And so I started out pretty quick, within a couple of years into leadership, and just gone meetings and missionary meetings and stake meetings. And, and so this is, her being left behind. Make sure my laundry's done. And hey, when I come back, make sure dinner's good and warm and on the table. And
he never
tell us about this picture, Vicki.
I laughed about this when I said, this is me telling her, yeah, I know I just got home, but I got a priesthood meeting this evening. So what time is dinner? So
yeah, I think we had a rough morning at church with all the kids, and, got home, and then he's like, oh, by the way, I got to leave in just a little bit. I have meetings after meetings and more meetings. I'm like, when will you be back? Probably about 9 o'clock. But yeah, I don't know.
You're climbing the corporate structure of the church, the leadership structure. Don and Vicki was supporting you.
Yeah, I mean,
everything else while you were doing it, maybe is a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, and there was, and you feel like you're gonna rain down the blessings of heaven. The more you serve, the more you do, and it was frustrating in a lot of areas throughout the years, because you had some men that just loved to be at church, loved to create meetings, have meetings, to schedule meetings. I mean, it was just it was frustrating to some degree with that. But yeah, so
who's taking this picture, by the way?
I think we were laughing about that. I had a what do you call it, tripod with a
timer.
Yeah, timer on it. Yeah, my Canon Minolta. I had a Minolta.
He made that clock hanging on the wall. I don't know if you remember the age of the cypress clocks.
Yes,
back then.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. You made that, huh?
Yeah. I whittled it out of, no, I just, yeah. But,
That's very
yeah.
cool.
So I guess, yeah, just serving in the church. I stayed at 70 for 20 years. And in 2002, I was ordained a high priest because I was working in the temple. That was when they wouldn't allow you to ordain high priest unless they were being called into a bishopric or a bishop, or they had to be being called into something. So a state president says, you're the only 70 I've got left in the whole state, so let's make you a high priest. So I was serving in the temple. I worked there probably about almost 8 years as an ordinance worker.
Now tell us what temple, because it's not Washington, D.C., right?
No, this is the Atlanta temple. So now the Atlanta temple is there. This was in 2001. So 2001 for about 7 and a little, almost, like I said, almost 8 years. I went through 4 temple presidents. So first one about 8 months, and then, but yeah. So it was every Wednesday night, and then there was sometimes they'd have me fill in. So I remember one time for 6 weeks I worked every Tuesday and Wednesday night. Didn't get home till about 11. We're about an hour from the temple. So
what were you doing for a living?
I do construction. So actually, I had my own business at that time. So I was doing things. But yeah, so I was
consuming on its own.
Yeah. And so, well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Work. Oh, by the way, at home, grab my bag and off to the temple. Yeah. And so I was the shift coordinator, and then also the temple trainer, which is a whole nother, so you're charged with not only training the new ordinance workers as they come, but you're charged with the responsibility of going around the temple and making sure, listening, watching, and making sure all the ordinances are being performed correctly. Because we were told if they are not done correctly, we're going to mark them done on the earth, but in the next life they go back to spirit prison, and they got to wait for the millennium for the records to be corrected because it wasn't done.
They think they're getting out, and then they find out, oh no, they didn't do the endowment ordinance right.
I was in the baptistry, and the temple president happened to walk through there, and he turned around and he looks and he points over and he goes, got to do that one again. He said, one of the witnesses looked up at the ceiling and didn't watch the baptism. It requires 2 witnesses. And so we went over and scrambled, and that was, man, we had a glass area. You never step past that glass area that you weren't in your whites. But now, today, you go in there in street clothes, and the witnesses can be anybody. They used to have to be Melchizedek priesthood, and now they can be anybody, girls, boys, anybody. They've changed that. So I felt so, when I would go in there with my street clothes on, street shoes and everything, walking in the area, it made me feel like I was, walking on sacred ground without, it bothered me. It just, so it was, so it was quite a challenge. And it just seemed like I'd come home and there was some crisis that Vicky had to deal with while I was gone, and.
Well, and then we would hear also, oh, we're having Ward Temple night. Y'all are going, right? I'm like, he's always at the temple, but they still, yeah.
And they even encouraged us too. They said, well, you're here serving as ordinance workers, but you still need to come back as a patron and do, temple work. So they would tell us, a funny story about, so we had these glass, big glass doors, and then this glass wall. And we came in one time, and the engineer had taken and had square pieces of glass, and he had put them on the temple, on this wall right there next to the door, and people were looking at that. Oh, you know what that is? That's the sign of the priesthood, and that's, and these. I said, I've never seen it before. Yeah, well, that's a symbol of this, and all these people were talking. So the temple president was back there one time, and I said, so tell me, what is that symbol? What is that for? And he looked at me and he goes, it's so they don't walk into the glass. Like, everybody wants to think there's some big mystery.
Yes, I encountered that too. I met somebody going all rhapsodic about the 3 taps on the, with the mallet.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we all know it's from the Tony Orlando song.
As we're getting ready to jump into your story in terms of disillusionment, it strikes me as you guys are talking about how busy you were in the church, and you're at meetings all the time, and there's always something to do. And it strikes me, the church has always put so much on its members' plates so that they don't have time to sit and think about how they feel about things, or to go through their thoughts about doctrines and theology. But then recently, the church goes from 3 hours to 2. And then RFM and I just learned recently that they're getting rid of the Saturday night session of conference finally.
It's out of there.
And I laugh because they've said, hey, less church is actually better for everyone, and less talking by prophets, seers, and revelators is preferred by everyone and is better for everyone.
If they lose any more church, they're going to make me active again.
Yeah, well, we go too much more, and you'll be going the same amount that they are. But it strikes me that as they give people more free time, this may backfire in that way, that it may let people sense into their own feelings more, read more, think more about church stuff in ways that aren't being pressured from the Sunday meetings, but get to do it at home and as they're reading books and looking things up on the internet. The generation of people being so busy that they didn't have any time to do anything, I think that's slowly coming to an end. The church is moving to a place where its members do have a little bit more free time.
Yeah, so much guilt was pushed, if you didn't do this, and if you didn't have time for this meeting, and if you missed the Saturday night session, but you just went to the Sunday one, if you didn't watch every session of conference. We even had a friend, he would not let his family get out of their Sunday clothes all day Sunday. They were to wear them every Sunday from morning to night.
I hear about that, and that's a way of showing your virtue, that you're more virtuous than those who change out of your church clothes when you get home.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because even now, excuse me, you talk to some people, and just like it was with me, like her sister and her husband, when they left, we were on a cruise and we sat at breakfast one day, and they were telling me all these things about, the problems with the Book of Abraham and Joseph Smith, and and I'm just like, it was like water on a duck's back. I'm just like, well, that's not true. Well, that's not true. That you just won't listen. Something has to kind of shake you, even with the when you're not as busy. And I'll make a public apology, Mark, Celinda. You were right. I was wrong. I'm going to say it right here on Radio Free Mormon.
Who's Mark Celinda?
That's her sister, and
went to the temple after me,
and got married and married the returned missionary guy.
Oh. And they left the church before
about 3 years before, and they were telling us things and all that. But I was just, it's not true. You're misled. You're, that's false doctrine. All that's anti-Mormon.
They still didn't get to him to even listen. It took, something else that shook him up to get him to.
And we're going to get to that in a second. I do want to comment, though, that this whole idea about, and I've experienced it, I know Bill's experienced, every freaking Mormon's experienced this. There's a resistance to hearing the truth if it's challenging to your faith. And I think that the flip side of that is this oft-quoted maxim about how when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Because from the student's point of view, it's like, wow, I'm ready. And look, there's a teacher. It's a miracle. I think they've probably been there all along. It's just we weren't ready to hear what they had to say.
Yeah.
Before we get to what bumped you, Don, I wanted to ask Vicky. You've got Don. He's pursuing the church structure of leadership. He's gone. If he's not at work, he's at the temple. If he's not at the temple, he's at the church, the word building. What is your perspective on all this? What's life like for you?
You mean since we've left?
No.
During the time.
During the time of all that?
God really is hardly ever seen.
I started thinking deep about things, some things, I talked to my sister and some things they had said. So I started reading, and the whole polygamy thing just really ate at me.
But he's talking about how was your feelings while I was serving all the time.
While he was serving all the time,
at
I
the
started,
temple.
at first I wanted to support him, but then I started resenting, I felt like because I felt like he would never say no. He would just keep doing everything they asked. And I felt that they made him feel that he, guilty if he even questioned, not going or not doing, not serving. And I started not being that into it as much as he was. And so I started resenting a little bit. And that's when I really wanted to know.
But you taught seminary.
I did teach seminary.
Really? Wow. How many years?
I did 1 year early morning seminary. I had about 20 students, 22.
The stake?
What?
Was it the whole stake or just a ward?
No, it's just our ward.
Just our ward. 22 high schoolers, early in the morning. Winters were rough because we'd get to the church building and the heat wasn't on. And then just keeping them awake and always planning, something different to keep them excited. And then the next year I did home study.
And home study, I'm so sorry, I don't know what that is. What is that program?
So they meet once a week, and then they have work. And I did the same thing. I taught home study too. You meet once a week, and then they have work that they got to do. And it's even harder because then the teachers got to go through it, make sure they understood the concept of it for them to get credit, for the class. If they're just coming, they could come in and sleep. If there's a warm body, they get checked off for attending. So, so it was, so it's a lot of extra paperwork you got to do because you got to go, and then you get somebody says, "Oh, I'm behind. Here's 12 weeks worth of work," and they hand it to you, and you got to go through it and kind of grade it, if you will.
And those poor kids, I mean, they'd be tired, and especially Thursdays when they had youth meetings, Wednesday night, and then they're in high school, they got homework, all that kind of stuff. But they're there at seminary, they're tired, and starting their day. It's a lot, that they're expected from them.
Yeah. Well, Vicki, I want to go ahead and let you continue with where you had started, that you're kind of at home, you're left to your own devices, you start using your time. By the way, I do want to show a picture, though, another picture that you sent me, because when we talk about a faithful Mormon family, you look like you were a couple of faithful Mormons.
Yeah. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids.
6 kids. Yeah. Those 3 girls were 18 months apart in age, and actually 2 of them had weddings a month apart.
You were faithful, and you had also mentioned that none of them are twins.
Right. None of them are twins. I did lose twins, though.
And they were between the after the first 3.
Yes.
Yes. They were after.
Yeah.
The first 3.
Yeah.
Because there is that age gap that you pointed out to me.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. About 7 years, I think, between so we were falling behind, so we needed to catch back up. I didn't want to get a call from the president of the church or anything about not keeping.
Or have some Relief Society sister say something.
Yeah.
When would this picture have been taken?
Where was it taken?
When and where?
It was near a pond.
Yeah, we went to some lady who took pictures around her. She had a pond and some, like areas. So we went there.
In Georgia.
Yeah. And, but I don't remember the year. Well, look, that's probably 20 years old. Why are you trying to age me or?
No, just trying to get a fix on it is all.
Yeah, I was a little nervous about the 2 younger ones sitting on that little bridge there over the water.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm holding on to the little boy. But yeah.
That's a very nice picture. And here is a picture of you. By the way, before we get to the bump, we have to talk about your failed bid to become stake president. You were really pushing for that, weren't you, Don?
Yeah, I found this picture. I just really liked it of me, so I thought I would just include it, in there because. But yeah, so I was called as bishop in 2021 September, and then in April of 2022, they were going to release the stake presidency. So I got this letter that said I needed to take a picture of myself and fill out this profile and I said, that's fine. I'm not going to throw my name in the hat. And they're like, no, it's not optional. You need to do this. So we have general authorities coming to interview people. So who's going to be? So, yeah. And it's interesting because so I literally walked in and I just said, I'm not your guy. What do you want? What else do you need from me? I said, I'm not your guy. I was just called as bishop. I'm not your guy. And they're like, well, so they were talking. And so they said, well, who would you recommend? What names? And I said, I gave them 3 names. These 3 people. Well, they called 2 out of the 3. So I'm like, either I'm inspired or, you just, got good taste from what, but you kind of look around sometimes what makes sense, and that's what it is. I certainly didn't feel like I was inspired in any way to know who the next stake president was going to be, which I got it wrong. I had him as a counselor, but I had him in the stake presidency. So,
well, it's a nice picture, and I'm sorry you didn't get the job.
Yeah, and so I was pretty disappointed. So,
oh, but by the way, yeah, can we just have one other story before we get to Vicky talking about what it is she stumbled upon? Because this goes with your active years, right?
Yeah. So this is shortly after we joined the church. I found this star necklace. It's very similar to one I used to wear that Vicky gave me. It was a gold star. And I wore it to a church activity, and I got pulled aside by the missionaries, and they says, hey, you can't wear that. And I said, what, the star? And they said, well, it looks like a cross. I said, no, it's a star. They go, yeah, but it really resembles a cross. I'm like, it doesn't look like a crucifix at all. So he says, yeah, you really need to take it off. And they're both sitting there like, yeah, because, we don't believe in crosses. And so,
do you believe in stars?
Yeah, they says, we don't, and I said, well, why is that? And I said, I know you don't have them around the building. And they says, well, because we believe in a living Christ, not a dead one. So we don't want that to be the representation of what, Christ is or whatever. And incidentally, we were adding on to the building, and where they were going to put it, there was a window there, and it was a brick wall. So they removed the window, and they asked this mason to come in there and brick that wall up so that it would there wouldn't be a hole there, brick it up. And it was in the classroom. And so he did a beautiful job of it, and he offset the bricks to create a big cross in that space. And they got upset with him, told him, hey, look, you got to tear that out. We don't have crosses. And he was upset. He's like, I've never heard of a church that doesn't have crosses. I can't believe that. I thought it did such a beautiful job, but they made him tear it out. But the reason I say that is now they talk like we never said you shouldn't have a cross. They act like there's nothing wrong with, a cross, wearing a cross and all that. And I'm just like, we went through so much stuff when, we back in the day, if you will, not even the pioneers day, but just, 80s and 90s, there was so much that was really pushed on you, and, ridiculous stuff. And now they act like, oh, it's no big deal,
Well, that's back when Mormonism was true.
Oh, yeah. And I must say that cross was not the one in the picture. It was a gift from me, and it was a beautiful star. It was a beautiful gold star, but it resembled a cross, but it was that shape, more like a star. But then to make him feel guilty for wearing it, and it was a gift from his wife,
So Don, you stopped wearing it?
Not only was I shouldn't wear it to church activities, I shouldn't wear it, period, because I'm a Mormon now, and you're misrepresenting the church by wearing a cross.
What did you think of that, Vicky? I mean, you're the one who gave it to him.
Yeah, I'm like, well, really? Why? I felt that I just didn't understand why.
But it was a request. We complied. We wanted to be good boys and girls, so we just followed. We didn't realize that was going to be offensive.
And we always planned on having, children, and we always felt that the more and the closer we were to the church, the more our children would be blessed, and we would have a happy family.
There's a reason you felt that way, Vicky. That's because what the leaders told you.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Vicky, can you tell us now, and then we'll get to you, Don, okay, and your experience, and let us know where they intertwine, okay? But Vicky, what happened to you? In other words, when did you start seeing that maybe everything wasn't as great as you thought it was in Mormonism?
Well, so many things that we were told when we were taking the discussions, I started, it's like we were told one thing, and then there were so many things that you didn't get answers for. They were like, well, you'll get an answer to that in the next life. You just got to have faith. And the number one thing that really bothered me that I didn't understand was the polygamy. Because, you look at these pictures of Brigham Young and all those women, and none of them looked happy. I don't know. I guess they were told not to smile then, but I don't know. I don't think a lot of them were happy. Just the life that they were, given. But then to hear that the church, they believe, there will be polygamy in the next life. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not. I can't support that. And then, it's like some people would say, well, the church, we really don't believe in polygamy now. I'm like, yeah, but why can a man be sealed to more than one woman, but a woman, if her husband dies, that can't be. So just so many things, and then I'm reading, like the 18th.
Can I ask you first off, while you're on polygamy, because that's the thing you brought up first, that was also one of the reasons that most attracted you to the church, was being able to be with Don forever.
Mm-hmm.
Is the polygamy idea, is that messing with your happily ever after?
Totally. And I'm like, why would I want to share him? This is a love story. We each love each other. But then the thought of someone else being a part of that, I couldn't agree with, that.
Mm-hmm.
It really bothered me. And then the more I read, once I started reading just, women in the church, their stories that were in polygamy and how unhappy they were.
And you listened to Lindsay Hansen Park's show at some point, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A Year in Polygamy?
What was that?
I was just saying that's the name of her podcast, The Year in Polygamy.
Yeah, we did, actually. That was something, she was one of the first people, because I wanted him to watch it. And she was one of the first.
I was trying to tear her up. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Where's she getting that from? Where's she getting? And I'm just like, this little girl, she don't know what she's talking about. And Vicky was trying to convince me, well, just listen to her story. And all. I was like, she's got it wrong. Well, then as I started to really learn this stuff, I was like, man, that young lady's got it down. I will never go up against her. She knows her facts. She knows the story. She knows the details behind it. And I respect her very much. And I ended up watching a lot of her stuff. That she did. Yeah, because it's I don't want to take her thunder.
Well, Vicky, the reason I'm asking this question, and perhaps you can help explain this, okay, is a lot of times you got two people, married, faithful members, long time. One of them starts to have doubts, and they compartmentalize that for a long period of time, sometimes forever, and keep it away from the other spouse because they don't want to let the other spouse know that they're having these doubts. Did that ever happen with you at all, or did you go straight to Don once you started to have doubts about polygamy?
We've always had a very open relationship, as far as being honest with each other. And I just told him, this really bothers me. And I can't support that this is right. So that was the first thing. I'm like, okay, that's wrong. Then I started reading, and then I read about the Mountain Meadows Massacre. It's like the church tries to gloss over things. But then when you're really reading about, what really happened and all those women and children, then I started getting him to listen to different things. And it started, making him question certain things,
So
but
Don,
yeah,
what was that? Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
No, I was just like, then blaming the Indians, taking Indian children and putting them in, Mormon homes, just so many things. It's like, once you start reading and then things start adding up and piling up, and it's one thing after another. And the thing I said to Don when I was just like, okay, because I was in primary and I taught the younger kids CTR 7 right before they were baptized. And I remember one Sunday, the lesson was on the priesthood. And I had a co-teacher that helped because I have two in the room. She was just going on to the little boys, you're so special, you're so special. And I looked over and was looking at the little girls, and they were just sitting there. I thought, they're special too, but it was like, she was like, you're going to have the priesthood one day. You're so special. You'll have this power. And the little girls are just sitting there with their arms folded. And I started getting to the point, I already was having a lot of doubts, but then I was getting to the point where I was like, I can't teach this to these kids. And I asked to be released. And then the member of the bishopric that I talked to, I said I wanted to be released. I couldn't teach them anymore. I just couldn't do it. And he says, well, how about we give you another calling? And I says, I'm not really ready for that right now. And he acted so surprised. Here I was the bishop's wife. And I'm like, I'm not ready for it. And he goes, really? Just very surprised at that. But
yeah, and you're taught when you call people, the Lord wants you to serve in this position. This is coming from the Lord. It's not us. It's coming from the Lord. And so, yeah, it was one of my counselors. So he was taken back that she didn't want to accept any calling at the time. So,
Don, what was this like for you? Is this how you entered into your phase of beginning to question things, or had you questioned things before? Or?
Well, everybody always talks about that shelf that we keep putting stuff on, all these things I had questions about, but I would always park a justification right next to it. Well, that's because of this, because of that, And so she was looking at stuff. And like I said, even I'm just like, you need to check your sources. That's not true. That's, because it didn't come from the pulpit. It didn't come from the brethren. So anything outside of that is false. What this narrative is what the truth is. And so she was struggling, I don't know, several months. And I was just like, bing, bing, just bouncing that stuff off.
And I did tell him, I go, Don, stop and think about this. This is the foundation of this church. If the foundation is cracked, how can the rest be true? And I'm like, right is right.
Really,
wrong is wrong.
And so, so what happened with me? So again, I'm not listening to a lot of it. I'm hearing it, but so we've got a good friend that's with the FBI. And so we were actually staying at his house, and we were just talking one evening, and he brings up a case they've been working on. It's been a little while, but he just said, I can't believe how your church protects. I can't remember if he said pedophiles or criminals. I just remember. And I looked at him and I said, like, what? And he said, and he didn't even know I was a bishop. He's not a member of the church. He didn't even know I was a bishop at the time. And he said, he goes, man, yeah, your church, he says, And then he told me about a bishop, an ex-bishop at the time, but this bishop and a member of the stake presidency who have been molesting these girls. And they had these witnesses, they had these victims, they had all been interviewed, they all had, and he said, we had them dead to rights. And in flies Curtin McConkie, shuts it down. Bishop, the current bishop, you are now protected under attorney-client privilege. You don't speak. Stake president, you don't speak. Whatever they did with the victims and with the witnesses, we don't know, but nobody would come forth. So they had nothing. This guy just walked, and I'm like, no way.
Your friend's an FBI agent, and he's telling you this about a case that he was involved in investigating,
right?
Recently, because he's still mad about it.
Well, it's been a couple years, but yeah, this happened. Well, it happened we left a year ago. So, but
it's about a year and a half.
Yeah. So it was some time back. Yeah. He just said, and I was like, really? I was like, no, no way. We are a reporting church. I know we are. And I served on the High Council in 2 different stakes. And in one stake, they don't do it anymore. The High Council is no longer involved. They don't hear the cases. It's only the stake presidency now. But back then, the High Council would meet, and these people would come in and plead their case or whatever, or they would send a letter from jail if they were incarcerated. But I know of 3 people that went to prison because of their actions. Pedophiles is what, So I'm like, you got to be wrong. There's no way, And he said, and he knew about the hotline. He goes, yeah. He goes, go ask about your hotline you got. He goes, that will stop it in the tracks. Your hotline. He goes, you got Curtin McConkie. He knew the attorney. He knew the whole. So I was like, okay. So we got home, and this just shook me for like 2 or 3 weeks. So finally went to the stake president. I asked him, I said, hey, what do you know about this hotline? What's the procedure here? And he said, well, I'm not really sure. He goes, let's discuss it at the next bishop's roundtable. Well, I was out of town when they had the roundtable, so I don't know what they discussed on that or not. But then I met with him a couple more times. I met with him 2 or 3 times then I started to start looking at stuff. And then somebody told me about Tim. Can I mention names in here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Tim Kosnoff. They said, go look up Tim Kosnoff. Mm-hmm. So I looked him up, and he's representing hundreds, if not thousands, of cases of abused children. So then I start digging up, and I'm hearing people's stories. I'm watching people's stories of these guys, and I'm just like, there's no way. And I'm seeing that the church is just burying this, well, we're going to let them repent. We would rather handle this internally. We want to.
Where are you seeing this, Don?
What's that?
Where are you seeing this?
I'm going online, and I'm reading stories, and I'm looking at, podcasts and people bearing their souls out, and stuff. And so, and I'm thinking to myself, these are criminals first. To me, they're the most heinous criminal on the planet. They're like a flesh-eating virus because they destroy lives. And so I'm like, there's no way. Why would our church protect that? Why? You don't just repent from that. I mean, I was taught, what about restitution? You break somebody's window, you either got to pay for it or go fix it. Then you ask for your forgiveness. And I was told they had to pay their debt to society first, then they could start the repentance process. Why are they allowed to go? And I had 2 of them in my ward as a bishop. I never got to meet with them. I say young men. They were, in their 20s. One might have been in his early 30s, but I met with their families and trying to reach out to them. They don't want to come to church, and they don't want me to come visit them. And I just wanted to go to, look, it's not your fault. You did nothing wrong. But they're embarrassed. They're shamed. I mean, and neither one of them reported. Neither one of them would report it. And so it was, so that just hit home with me, was that, the fact that these guys, and they turn to drugs, alcohol. They can't keep a decent relationship. that sometimes they can't hold a job. I know one of them tried to commit suicide. And so they just destroy these lives. And any organization that would support that, it just, that's what really cracked my shell right there was that. I just couldn't. And then I started digging into,
he started reading a lot. And I'm like, don't read anything that has Deseret books on it.
I kept from Deseret, but yeah. So yeah, I started reading. I got Russ Stone Rolling, Bush,
Richard Bushman.
Yeah.
Deseret book is not a reliable source of information, unfortunately. I hate to tell you that.
What's that?
Deseret book is not a reliable source of information about Mormonism.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, do not.
And that's what you're starting to see. Well, yeah, you call it anti-Mormon literature and anti-Mormon stuff, but it's because it is against the church, because the church's narrative isn't the truth. And just because it's coming from outside of church, and then, with the internet and, people being able to share, stories and journals and diaries from ancestors and all this kind of stuff, this stuff all starts coming out. And then you find out, that the church has it. I looked up the gospel topic essays, and it's like, they're spelling it out, I mean, it's,
went to that thing in Nashville too.
Yeah. So another name drop here, John DeLynn was having a Mormon meet, Exmo, I guess what they, and I was still the bishop at the time. And she's like, I want to go to Nashville. I want to go to this. And I was just like, ooh, okay. So we went and I introduced myself to John DeLynn and just thought it would be nice. Oh, he wants to announce over the speaker. Oh, this is an actual sitting bishop right here. He let everybody know. So got a lot of people coming up, a lot of, ex-bishops and things coming up and talking to me and stuff. But that just started, the crack. And the more I read, so I spent about 3 months just digging into stuff, reading stuff and all that. And I met my stake president a couple of times. And then finally we just went. I said, all right, I'm done. Let's go set a time. We went and met with the stake president and just said, look, there's just too many holes in everything, all the way back to, to Joseph Smith. I said, and I want out. I'm not going to be a party to this at all. I'm not going to be responsible for picking up a phone and saying I got to call a hotline or someone telling me you can't report this person or whatever. I mean, somebody came into my office and told me they were hurting a child. I mean, if he got out of there with his limbs on, I mean, there's no way. I mean, I would be on the phone with the authorities first, and I would deal with the repercussions. So I just did, and there was a stake president, I think, that did time, went to jail for like a year or something for not reporting something or something, when I don't know what ever happened there, but
there was a stake president. I think it was Pennsylvania, Philadelphia,
somewhere up in the north. Yeah,
that case was dropped.
Oh, was it? Okay.
If we're thinking
but again, I said, I'm not going to be somebody's pawn. I'm not going to be in the middle of this. I'm out, and so I looked at it and I said, Joseph Smith, they said he had between 30 and 40. I love how they put it on the website too. It's like, well, he did marry one girl, Helen Mars Kimball, several months before her 15th birthday. Like, you're a church that prides yourself on family history and all that. That makes her 14. Can you not just state the fact that she was a 14-year-old girl? And I'm looking at all that and his marrying other men's wives, and and at first I'm just like, this can't be true. This can't, you go to the church website and they finally spell it out on there because the word's out. They know they got, so then they're trying to justify it, and so I'm thinking, take away Brigham Young, take away Joseph Smith and all of his problems and all the questions and the Mountain Meadows Massacre. You just leave me with a church that doesn't prosecute a pedophile, and I'm done. That's enough for me to just say I'm done. I'm not, that was my solid walk away right there. So the bishop, stake president asked me, well, who do you recommend? Oh, here's your number one guy right here. Here's your bishop. You call this guy right here.
That's so funny. You're leaving the church because you found too many problems with it. Okay, I understand that as the stake president, but who do you think should fill your shoes when you go?
Yeah, and he said, and I said, here's 5 other alternates, but this is your guy right here, And he goes, okay, and I'm, whatever, prayed about it, did whatever. But I told him, I said, look, I'll honor the priesthood. I'll respect the office of a bishop. I will continue to serve until you find someone, but don't take too long. And it took him 2 months, even, at that. And I was like, I already gave you the guy, call him, and that's who they ended up calling. It's like,
by the way, same thing. When I was in the middle of my faith crisis, serving as a bishop, I said, look, I've done my time. I'm not going to quite meet the 5 year. I was in 4.5 years. I said, you got to find the next guy. Okay, well, just be patient. It's going to take us some time. I came back to him in 2 months and said, hey, 60 days has gone by. Where's the new bishop at? I don't know that I believe this thing anymore. You need to release me. And it took forever to do it. So I just think the process, whatever it is, they pray about it. Got to meet as a stake presidency. They got to send the name on the first presidency, whatever the process is there. It takes weeks and weeks. And you and I both know the first presidency is not looking at a name. They might be doing some sort of background check or some sort of other thing to see if Bill Reel or if Don Suda's got, some sort of issue, but they're not sitting there with our names on a table going, Heavenly Father, is Bill Reel the right guy to be no, that's not happening. Whatever the process is, it takes forever.
Yeah, we had someone tell us once who wasn't a member of the church and somehow got on the subject of missionaries and missionaries being called. And he had made the comment, he goes, well, you know what they do? They just have this big dartboard. And when they get a name, they just throw that dart wherever it lands. That's where the guy goes.
Big map on the wall.
Big map, yeah.
On the wall, and they just sling a dart. Okay, he's being called to here. It's
an effective method.
Yeah.
But I mean, you stop and think about that. Look at all of the bishops and even stake presidents or stake presidencies. These are pretty serious callings. And where is, the discernment? Where is the inspiration to say this guy's a pedophile? This guy's going to cause problems. And there are just a lot of yucky bishops, out there, stupid bishops. I know of cases where a bishop is asking detailed information to these young girls, young people that if they've made a mistake, they want to know the details about it. I'm like, that's a pervert right there, because why does he need to know details? People come into me and they're confessing. They say, I don't make them rehash it. I don't make them, I just say, I assume you're talking about you had intercourse. They said, yes. Okay. So that's the end of it. Listen, here's what let's work on this. Let's work on that. No details. I don't, and especially with teenagers. And one thing that really ticked me off too was I was at a bishop's roundtable, and one of the bishops was talking about how he had a lot of issues with young boys and pornography and masturbation.
That's a shocker. I
said, I don't really have that many problems. And one of the bishops says, you're not digging deep enough. You're not asking enough questions. And so we're supposed to interview the youth every 6 months, right? And and then on their birthday, and then 6 months later, and you're supposed to, we just went through the temple recommend questions. I would just say, hey, how you doing? How's school? And got we had some, some great youth. And then I asked the temple recommend questions as they are printed out. Do you consider yourself morally clean in your thoughts and in your behavior? If they hesitate or they stammer around a little bit, any issues with pornography or anything? Oh, no. Okay, well then, and let's move on. If they just say, no problem, moving on, and so I'm not diving deep. And I even had a member of the stake presidency tell me, you don't ask them if they've ever masturbated. You ask them when the last time they masturbated.
Of course.
And I'm like, hey, let me spell this out to you. Hell no. I mean, it's like, there is no way. I'm not, and we got 11-year-old girls in there now that are moving into to young women. And I'm like, I am not gonna, and I always made sure I had 3 different executive secretaries in a little over 3 years that I served. I always made sure my executive secretary sat outside my office. There's been a push for the bishops to have a window in their door, just like all the other classrooms.
That was another thing. Yeah.
And that was something that bothered her. Anybody could accuse you or anything. You're behind a door with it, by yourself with someone. And I always, when I ever did interviews with the youth, I always invited the parents if you want them. If the kid said, no, I'm okay, whatever, sometimes you think, okay, you don't want the parents in here. Maybe there's going to be, something up. But no, they just, but but I'm like, and it's something that after I stepped out and looked back at it, I think it's interesting that the church does an audit and every 6 months. I don't know, Bill, if you went through the same thing. So every 6 months they would come in and do an audit, check all your books, make sure everything looks in order. And then you had to fill out this form. Every time someone opened up a tithing audit, were there always 2 people? Were there 2 priests? With a member of the bishop? All these questions about how that money was handled. When you took it to the bank, were there 2 people? 2 cars, 2 separate people, driving it to the bank, and to make the deposit. Then every year you have to watch the film that the sacred funds of the church. So the bishop is supposed to sit down and watch this film about sacred funds of the church and how we're supposed to push out the family, friends, anybody else that can help them before you write a check from tithing or from fast offering funds, which they don't really have it separate anymore. It used to be what you collected in fast offering is what you had to spend on fast offering. Now it's all just kind of one big lump. Some it's different, but yeah. So, and I'm thinking, geez, they're so worried about the money part of it, but what about the youth? Oh yeah. Every 3 years, you got to watch the little cartoon protecting youth, cartoon. So if you're teaching the youth or primary, you have to watch this video every 3 years. I'm like, we audited every 6 months over here. Why isn't there better? I just, I don't like the interview process. I didn't like, the way, and even with, with other people, and people are so wound so tight. I had a guy come in there and he's just like, I've got an issue. I got a problem, and I was like, what's the problem? He's like, it's pornography. And I said, are you looking at pornography? He goes, no, not yet. I go, what do you mean not yet? He said, I have a desire to do it. I just feel like I need to repent. I was like, we haven't done it yet. Get out of here, man. I was like, I got more important things to do. Come back when you've actually done something, man. It's like, but I mean, everybody feels so wild. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, don't look at that. Don't look at this. And it's just, I don't know. It's just so crazy. When you're in it, you just with the flow, but when you stop and step back and take a look at it, it's just enough to, you just cringe. And I'm just like,
when you look at the money as a bishop, they do the audit every 6 months, and it's the one thing they care about, because somebody comes to your ward and will spend multiple days with you, and if there's not a receipt for a $7 thing, then you as a bishop are made to feel so much shame, and that you need to go work on this, you need to fix this, you need to not let this happen again. And I'm, in your head, you're like, excuse my language, but Jesus Christ, it's a $7 item and we don't have a receipt. They don't care about the kids, but they care about embezzlement. They care about the money, as long as it's not the top 15 who create dummy companies and hide billions and billions of dollars and commit forms of financial fraud. That doesn't bother them. But you as a bishop, if you do not cross every T and dot every I on that financial side, they are riding your ass. And you know it. As soon as they come in, I was one of these bishops that I did everything right, but I wasn't a stickler for details. So there's always a receipt or two that I was missing for something, but you could tell that it was a legitimate thing that was done. And who the hell, okay, I stole $17. What are you going to do? Like, really?
Fire me.
Yeah, that is something they care so much about, and yeah,
I work for a very major bank. I'm not going to mention the name, but everyone, we dread our once a year audit. I mean, they have so much money that comes through every day. Once a year, we have an audit.
A financial institution, yeah. So that's open 6 days a week, and we're one.
Yeah.
So it's I had one where a sister circled the items on the receipt that she bought. She went to like Costco, or I don't know if you guys have those out west, Costco's, but she had gone and she bought a bunch of stuff for her home, and then she bought stuff for an activity at church. So she circled the items. Well, the tax didn't work out right. So what they reimbursed her for, but anyways, it became an exception. Yeah. And now you got to say why it happened and what you're going to do to prevent that from ever happening again.
What? Because you have to, obviously the tax that's at the bottom of the receipt is for the total amount.
Right. And so it didn't balance out, or whatever the check got cut for, whatever, it didn't add up, so I told I told everyone, I said, for going forward, if you go in there, do 2 separate transactions just to make it easy,
Or the tax is on you.
Yeah. So it's
Hey, Bill.
Yes.
I know you're really doing all the technical stuff and everything, and I appreciate everything you can throw in here, because it does strike me that I've never been aware of this before, because I've never been a bishop. I did not know you got audited twice a year.
Financial stuff, RFM, is the only thing I stressed over, because as he pointed, those guys come in, and if they find anything, no matter how small, they make you feel like crap for having the tax wrong off by 40 cents. When I saw it, as soon as you heard, hey, by the way, in 2 weeks, we're going to do the financial audit, and the guy on the high council who's responsible for doing that for your ward will be here on Sunday after church. And you just knew, like, oh man, he's going to find something. He's going to find something. And I'm just going to be sad for a week because he just rides your ass.
Yeah. What did I do? Oh yeah, that was, so the guy texted me and said, I'm coming to do the audit. And he didn't even realize that I had been released. Right. So he texts me, and I forget. So I said, I can't remember. I went off on some weird deep stuff that we decided to use the money for something, or, right now it's not a good time or something, because we borrowed several. I don't know what I did. He just says, oh, okay, well, I'll check back with you later, whatever. I'm like, who is this guy, man? He would have been, I did something real sarcastic, to him. I said, if you don't know I've been released, and it had been like 3 months. And I said, you don't know I've been released. You need to go back and check your records. But yeah, that was.
So how many people how many people from the old ward have reached out to you to see how you're doing? Bishop?
0.
Are you kidding me? You're the freaking bishop, and none of them have even reached out to you to say, are you okay?
When we went to church with our daughter, when they were visiting, the new bishop came up to him and said, I can't believe this. You've been on my mind so much for the past few weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And I got 3 lunches. Well, at least the potential for 3 lunches.
Yeah.
Hey, let's get together and go to lunch. When your daughter leaves, let's do lunch. Let's do lunch. And so.
But no one called. Yeah.
I called the bishop because I wanted to challenge him on this. So I left in September, right? Bill, what happens in October, November? Tithing
settlement?
Tithing declaration now. It's not a settlement. You don't have to settle anything anymore. You just declare your tithing, right? So the bishop's sitting there, hours, meeting with all the families, which I loved. I mean, I got a chance to know them and do all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm like, I've been paying tithing for most of the year. What did he declare me? Did he declare me a full tithe payer? Did he declare me a partial or a non-tithe? How did he declare my tithing status?
So you weren't called in for tithing settlement then, or you didn't go in?
Well, I didn't. Well, I wasn't called in, and they usually put up a sign up and have people sign up, for it,
right.
Which I just didn't do. But as a bishop, you got to go through there. And if they hadn't come in, you have to call them or try to meet them. I've done videos and different things when, of course, it was during COVID, right? And some people were sick. Some people still weren't coming out to church, even though when they opened church up. So I would do videos so all the kids could be on there, and we do the tithing thing. And so, but yeah, you're supposed to declare everybody. They're supposed to declare it to you. So, but I said, well, he never reached out to me. So I texted him and says, hey, just curious, how did you declare me? He's like, I don't even remember. I don't remember what, And so then he ended up calling me. And then right after that, the state president called me. And I said, that don't count. I said, that I'm the one that primed the pump there, So he's like, yeah, I've been thinking about you and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, apparently not enough, And I'm like, yeah, well, I've been thinking about you too. It's like, where's my freaking money?
My experience has been is that with two exceptions in my case, nobody from the old church wants to contact me or see how I'm doing. There was one time when I went back, and that was a couple years ago. I think it was for Easter or something, and might have been 3. All of a sudden, I'm seeing all these old faces, and they're, oh, how are you doing, Radio Free Mormon? I have been thinking of you. I want to do lunch with you, and all this stuff. And it's just like, wow, this seems so fake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and one other challenge we had with the church. So we had one of our daughters came home at 16 years old, expecting. So she was pregnant, very upset because she knew, obviously, but she counseled with her bishop, and her bishop told her, if marriage, the church policy is if marriage isn't possible, the next step is you give that child up for adoption. You need to be thinking about that. And what's interesting is in that ward, we had 2 pregnant girls, members, two pregnant teenagers, and there were 3 young men who got their non-member girlfriends pregnant. So there were 5 pregnancies in our youth in that ward. But anyways, our daughter was one of them. So it was recommended that she place the child for adoption. So we told her she needed to think hard about that. Don't do what we think, but here we are, this is, I don't know what, serving somewhere, but not a bishop, but yeah, so it was a real challenge. So she decided to do that. She says, I think this is what, God wants me to do. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so, yeah, so
she loved that baby so much. I mean, she was the type of girl that she was her younger brothers and sisters. They just loved her. She loved kids. And she said, I want to give my baby the best. And she actually made a photo album for the baby because she wanted to know where she came from. And it had all of her family in it, her grandparents, and she did all the pictures. She made a baby blanket out of her baby quilt, a patchwork baby blanket. And she said she wanted her wrapped in that when she placed her for adoption. She loved that little girl. I mean, she took care of herself so, and then it came down to picking out a family. And so, I can still remember how LDS Family Services, when she was pregnant, they would come to the ward to homemaking meetings and talk to the women. If you know anyone that's having a baby, encourage them to place their child for adoption through LDS Family Services. That child can be sealed to a family in the temple, and will have an eternal family. And here we're like, we could have raised that baby, but at the same time, we were still in the mindset that because she wasn't getting married, what would be the best thing for the baby would be to place it for adoption. But we wanted to do what our daughter wanted. We would have supported her either way. But
and the husband and the father was the same age. They were both, young teenagers. And just, and he was the same way, he wanted to keep the baby too, but he said whatever you think is best. So,
but she picked out the couple, and come to find out later, I mean, LDS Family Services did a very botched job of support for her. She had no emotional support at all. As far as the adoption, the couple that adopted her, they paid 10% of their income and that was an adoption fee, they called it. My daughter got nothing. She got nothing for expenses, for clothes, for, she didn't ask for it. She didn't expect it. And, but I'm like, so basically the church made money off of her baby. I felt like the church acted as baby brokers, sending and making, them feel that they needed to, if they weren't going to keep the baby, they needed to place it for adoption. I told Donna, I'm like, wow, it's sort of like that popular series Handmaid's Tale. The birth mothers were treated so terribly. I read so many things after that. I actually called out to Salt Lake. I have a friend that I worked with. Her son was about the same age, and he had placed a baby for adoption. The mother left, and he had the child, but he placed it at a young age. And she said every 3 months or 4 months, they get to visit that child. And I said, how did you do that? Because all my daughter wanted, all she asked for was pictures on the child's birthday and at Christmas and a letter saying how she was doing. Well, when she turned 4, they wrote and said they changed their mind. They were not going to send pictures and letters anymore. And she said, Mom, I never changed my mind. And she went through so much after she placed that baby for adoption. She sat there a couple days after giving birth, getting out of the hospital, holding that little baby, signing away her rights, crying while she was doing it. All of us were crying. I mean, it was so hard. And then when she went home, not getting any emotional support or checking on her. I mean, it's like they just dropped her. And I called out to Salt Lake because I'm getting a little sidetracked, but the woman that I work with, I had asked her, how do you get to visit the baby every 4 months? And she says, well, there was an attorney present at the adoption. There was a contract, that was our request. I said, oh, okay. Because LDS Family Services, there was no attorney. They just had her sign away everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
there was someone that represented her for LDS Family Services, and then someone that represented the adoptive parents. And
they just told her where to sign. That's how they
it was like, here's
her.
what you got to do. But one thing we found out afterwards, because we had some other friends who were trying to do adoptions through the LDS Family Services, and she goes, I didn't like it at all. She said, they tell you just agree to everything they ask for. Just agree. You just need to get that baby. You just agree to everything. And then after 2 or 3 years, those mothers go away. They get busy with their lives, and they won't want anything. So they assumed, I know this, that they assumed that she was just going to go away, and she never has. And she just says, that's not right. That's not what I had asked for. I didn't ask to come visit her. I didn't ask to, for phone calls or anything like that. All I wanted was, just a correspondence to see her grow up, and see how she was doing. And I just thought that was so rude that they, here they are, members of the church. You know what I mean? You're supposed to be compassionate and loving, and you got this young teenage girl asking for this, and then you just turn on her and just act like. And so they kind of disappeared. We lost track of them, and of course, my daughter, she's like a detective, she found out who they were, found their name, and all this kind of stuff. And I reached out to him through because he was a very prominent person and had an email. So I found him online and did it through his business university, actually, where he's teaching. And boy, he got hot with me. Who are you to email me at this? This is not the email. I said, well, you turned, what? That baby is sealed to us. She is ours. Blah, 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 blah. And I thought, wow.
Yeah, he said, I know.
Satan gets you behind me.
Yeah, he said, all the people I know that have been adopted, I don't know any that want to find their birth parents.
Yeah. Yeah, he said that. He said, I don't know one case of
And he
where-
was an active member of the church, a Temple Recommend holding member.
which they have to be
To
adopt.
adopt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I called out to Salt Lake, after finding this out, they had changed their mind. The simple things she asked, a letter and a picture of her daughter. The man that was over LDS Family Services, he says, well, unfortunately, this does happen. These adoptive parents, they do change their mind. I'm like, yeah, but that's not right. There should be some type of legal, whatever the birth mother asks for, if they agree to the adoption, that should at least be honored or noted. But anyway, that's what the birth mothers, they were just treated terribly through LDS Family Services. Terrible.
Yeah, and they got shut down because of all the lawsuits. From what I understand, they no longer operate at all because of so I think that guy told you we have a lot of lawsuits against the church because of just not properly given support and representation. So
Yeah, taking advantage of the fact that somebody's not represented and young.
Mm-hmm.
There's no even like Miranda warnings for him.
Yeah, and it's and I mean it's like that being sealed to a family is the most crucial thing for that for that child, and so fortunately she's reached out to us. That it's our first grandchild, so she has
when she was 16.
Yeah, she found her on Facebook. Hey, do you know who I am? Oh, heck yes, we know who you are.
She's 21 now.
Oh, well, that's nice. By the way, I know you got this. If there's anybody out there who's wondering about Miranda, I'm not talking about the keep silent part. I'm talking about the right to an attorney part.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you have the right to an attorney to represent you in this proceeding.
Yeah. And to me, that's just so, I can't even understand why the church would not have something, that's such an important gift that the girl is giving.
It is.
When they came to pick the child up from the hospital, we actually had to drive from the hospital, and the doctor was so good because he knew what was going on, and he let her stay an extra day, which concerned me because I was afraid maybe his father is just going to make it even worse. But anyway, she got to stay with her, but they had to drive the baby from the hospital back to Family Services to the building, and then that's where the transaction would happen. But they didn't even have a car seat for the baby. They were like, oh my gosh, they were scrambling around trying to figure out. So one of the workers went home, got their car seat, came back so that they could transport, because they were like, well, you can't take the baby out of the hospital without putting him in a proper car seat, So I was like, how ill prepared was that, So anyways,
I guess there was no IQ standard for these people.
They're
excited. They're happy. They forgot the car seat.
Yeah. So it's
Got it. By the way, hey, Bill, are we going to be able to have people come on the show? We usually have people ask questions by link. They'll show up on the screen if they want to, or maybe it'll just be a blank square, but we'll be able to hear their voice regardless to ask questions of our guests. We limit that to 3 a week. And usually there's plenty of people who want to talk and ask questions. You're certainly an interesting couple. Now, I want to ask you both, and Vicki first. Okay. Is there anything about what you've said tonight and this interview and being on this show that has you concerned about other people seeing it?
Oh, no.
You're
not
good
at
with
all.
that? Everybody knows?
Yeah.
How about you, Don?
No, I'm completely fine. And one other thing I would like to add, people think, oh, you get offended or you don't like something, you don't want this. I'm just bailing out of that. It hurts. Mm-hmm. This is something we believed in for 45 years. We were solid members, serving hard. It hurts. It's like a punch in the gut. And you question it. For months, I still question, oh my gosh, remember the spiritual experience when I was in the temple. Mm-hmm. Well, was that me, or was it because I was in the temple? It's just it's not an easy thing. It's just not like we're just turning and trying to go after the church. And be negative and mean, and it hurts.
Yeah, it's a huge betrayal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then you sit there and you ask yourself, how many years did I stay active in the church after this thing happened with my 16-year-old daughter and her baby and
Yeah.
all of that? And it was a long
Plugging
time. It was
through.
it was 15 years.
Well, yes, 21 years. She's 20 or 20, at least
Yeah.
20 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
So
thing
you,
is, our daughter never got over it. She never got, she had some extreme serious issues because of it.
I'm
You know,
sorry to
and we
hear that.
find out some things, as our children are adults, and so my son, when he was a deacon, passing sacrament, he kind of had a routine. They would pass the sacrament, and then he would, they would release the young men, and he'd go, almost always go into the restroom, go use the restroom, come back, sit with us, right? I found out after he's an adult, he tells me, he goes, well, a particular person that was in the ward who had been accused of other things, but because they couldn't substantiate it or whatever, prove it, he was never, charged with anything, whatever, but he was questionable and he wasn't supposed to be around you. He tells me, he goes, oh yeah, that guy, he would come into the restroom while I was urinating in the urinal and would rub my shoulders and would sit there and talk to me. And I'm like, what? Why wouldn't you tell us? He goes, well, I mentioned it to the bishop when I was having one of my interviews, and he says, okay, thank you for letting me know, but don't tell anybody else and don't tell your parents about this.
No way.
Yes. And so that's what I'm thinking. And I know the bishop, and he was a great guy and everything like that, but that's the kind of stuff I'm just like, there needs to be centralized training for bishops, period. I mean, there's just not. Every bishop operates however they think it should be done, and that's one of the big challenges. And like I said, those ones I think that are perverted with they asking all these, deep personal questions and, and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it's, we've had our challenges with bishops and we've had our challenges with family services, but we just, hey, it's the Lord's church. Yeah, I know you're telling me Joseph Smith did that and Brigham Young did this and the foundation of the church is sketchy, but no, this is still the Lord's church, and so, but once it finally cracks and you just start looking at that stuff and realize, wow, what a fool I've been.
Well, we've all been fools, Don, except for the Nevermos out there. Andrew has shown up. He would like to ask you something. Andrew, how are you doing? And what'd you think of the show and Don and Vicky?
Hey, I really appreciated tonight's show. Thank you, Don and Vicky, for being brave and vulnerable and sharing your story. Yeah, this was incredible work. I deal a lot. I'm really interested in ways in which for people in authority, there are exceptions to the rules that are allowed. So like with the church and its hierarchy, you're supposed to be honest. Like that's a commandment, right? The Lord is asking you to be honest in your dealings with your fellow man. At the same time, we have that Don was talking about that FBI agent who was working with these child molestation cases and how the church is allowed to withhold information to protect the local leadership. So that for me, that's a clear case of the church being an exception to the rule. You're supposed to be honest, but the church has to be allowed to bend the rules or to withhold information in order to protect the church. So I was wondering, what are some other ways you guys can think of where you noticed that the church was acting as an exception to the rules? What ways did you find that you were expecting you were expecting one thing because that was just supposed to be the right thing to do. And yet you saw with the church practices that there was another set of rules that the church was functioning under.
I don't know. Can you think of anything off?
And I'll tell you, Andrew, I'm not sure because I never even made bishop. I'm a total
Yeah.
tenderfoot in this thing. But I think that you're right. I think that does happen. I think it starts happening at levels above bishop and maybe even
For
above
sure.
state president.
I think
Yeah.
at least one easy example, as we pointed out earlier, is, as Don was expressing, how they handle finances at the local ward level.
Yep,
compared to
exactly.
how the first presidency can create dummy companies, hide money. It can be in the billions. There's certainly a double standard there.
Absolutely.
The Gospel Principles Manual saying to be honest and defines what honesty is, and then you watch church leaders and the curriculum writers do it in such a way as there's no ifs, ands, or buts that they're lying and being deceptive.
You know what I would like if
Yeah.
there's any bishops out there
That's
who are
exactly
watching the
right.
show.
Yeah.
If there's any bishops out there who are watching the show and would like to have a little experiment, I would like to ask you to create a few shell companies and then put some of the tithing from members of your ward in one shell company and put tithing in another shell from other people, maybe the fast offerings in the third shell company, and see what the church thinks about that.
Wouldn't fly.
Yeah. Yeah. The finances are like a really great example. That's the example I'm really really concerned about because of the SEC scandal and the millions and millions of dollars that was allowed to accumulate under the shell corporations. Another one, Vicky was talking about the polygamy problems. So with the polygamy, there's a double standard of you're taught to be monogamous. Like monogamy is like it's supposed to be one man and one wife, and you're supposed to be faithful to your spouse. However, in practice, Joseph Smith had multiple wives. Lots of the church, the higher up church leadership had multiple wives. So that's clearly a double standard, and it's even with what Vicky was talking about with widows and widowers, where a man who has lost his wife is able to get married and be sealed to both spouses, the deceased spouse and their current spouse. With women, that's not allowed.
Not in the temple.
You have to choose one or the other. So that's another clear exception to the rules. So yeah, that's been my interest in when I hear stories like Don and Vicky's interests, or Don and Vicky's stories, is seeing how the church is playing an exception to the rules that it's teaching, and you have to just see that as okay. And it's hard because it feels like we were all duped into cutting the church some slack, or like Elder Anderson said, give Brother Joseph a break. I think that's what
That actually
one of the
sounded
apostles
like
said.
him.
Yeah, give Brother Joseph a break.
That was weird, and I heard it without the microphone. The whole sound system went out, and I heard it anyway.
So, well, I appreciate it, Don and Vicky. Thank you very much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, sure thing.
Don and Vicky, this is the end of the show. This is your chance to say whatever it is you want to whomever you want. Final statements, closing thoughts. Vicky first.
Well, I know there's a lot of good people out there that are just trying to do because they love the Lord, they love Jesus, and they feel that just not looking into anything and just to keep serving, that's doing, doing their works. But boy, I tell you, once your eyes are open and you've left, you looked at humanity different. You have more compassion for strangers. I mean, it's totally different. And I think part of it is because you have more time to appreciate other people. Everything's just not centered, like you have blinders. It's only the church, only the church. And you feel like your life is so much richer.
Thank you. That's been my experience too. I'll tell you. What do you think, Don?
Yeah, I mean, we were expecting, the tree to fall on us, or crush our house, or all these horrible things. You're told that you step away from the church, and you're going to have the fiery darts of the adversary after you. And it's been beautiful. It's been peaceful, and the same thing. I mean, I love my ward. I love the members there. They, they're good, hardworking, serving, people, and they're great people, and there's nothing wrong with that. With them on the boots on the ground, if you will, on the local levels.
Right.
But as you start climbing into the hierarchies, these guys are just being deceitful and not being honest about what they're doing and how they're doing stuff. It's just there's just so many things. There's so and so that's where my frustration is with the leadership and how they they go about doing things and constant changes and all this. But I mean, I really I love my congregation. I should say my congregation, but the congregation I presided over, since that's what. But it's like I said, it's a tough thing. It's a punch in the gut, and it's hard, because there was so many, and that's what's interesting. You feel like they're all friends. You get together on Sunday, you do stuff, you talk, you're calling, you're texting the other one, and then you step away, and you're out, and so you just don't get any of that at all anymore. But it's just but. Yeah, but I again throw my thanks to my my sister-in-law, who kept, when she saw my break and the thing, she just kept texting me with stuff. Watch this, read this, watch this video, and that.
Is she watching tonight?
She probably is, yeah. So
I'm sure.
And and I'm like, RFM, who is Radio Free Mormon? Who are you? What do you watch? What podcast? So yeah. So but I just appreciate the support of others when we left. That was another thing too. Other people I met, complete strangers in Nashville, still reach out to me and chat and talk, and how are you doing? And
one of them said he was definitely watching tonight.
Oh, good. Wonderful. We got a great cruise coming up in September too, by the way.
Yeah, I want to find out about that.
Yeah, that's where's it going? Do you know?
Bill?
To the Mexican Riviera. So it's I can try to find the date.
Vallarta, Mazatlan, and someplace else famous.
Yeah,
It's 7 nights.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know what the third one is, but I can find it here in a few minutes.
I got the first 2 right though, didn't I?
Yep, you got the first 2 right.
This is a good time to do this. By the way, I tell you what, why don't we just go ahead and say thank you so much for coming on the show, Don and Vicky. We'll let you get about your evening. You're on the East Coast, so right there, it's 7 here, 8, 9, it's 10 o'clock, just after 10 o'clock there, and you might have to get up in the morning. So thank you so much for joining us. I've been seeing a lot of great comments from the audience. Everybody seems to really love you and appreciate you. And thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story.
Thank you. You've been great with communicating and everything. Letting us know what was ahead.
Yes. Well, it worked out great, and it was probably a little bit nerve-wracking at first, but then it just flew by. That's my guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's usually how it works.
I'm not as nervous anymore.
Well, good. Just in time for me to say goodnight. Well, thank you again, and thank you so much. We'll stay in touch, okay, Don and Vicky?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Bill.
Yep, take it easy.
Okay. So you know about this Puerto Vallarta?
Yeah, so let me share my screen and
I kind of like this outside our boxes, with the
that new
color.
I thought I was looking at it when we had the orange. We've been using that orange forever, that yellow orange.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little distracting. Somebody made the comment a few weeks ago that it was. So while I was sitting there, I tried to find a couple of backgrounds that maybe would be a little more distinct and would allow us to stand out a little more. And so hopefully folks like that as well. If you go to mormondiscussionpodcast.org and at the top on the header, you'll see. So if you're at the homepage, it'll look like this. And if you go up here to the top, it'll be Post-Mormon Cruise. And if you type that, it also shows up, I think. This is the link that didn't work last time, but it's mormondiscussions.org, which is our umbrella site that has, let me go down here to visit site. This has the header here and has all the podcasts. So you can click Radio Free Mormon, everybody's favorite podcast there. And but at the very top, it has Post-Mormon Cruise. And I'm hoping that link works, but I know for sure mormondiscussionpodcast.org, it will work there. So this gives you a bunch of information on the cruise. Again, it embarks on September 13th, 2026. So we're almost a year away from that, 11 months or so. And it gives you to register for the cruise. It's got the link right there. And I'll put this in the live chat one more time. So I'm going to copy and paste it over. It is in the show notes, by the way. So if you go down below the YouTube channel and click the details of this episode, you'll see it there. But you can register for the cruise. So if I click that link, 7-night Mexican Riviera embarks out of LA. Radio Free Mormon, Rebecca, myself, we're the host. So we'll be spending lots of time with you. You depart day 1, Long Beach, California, day 2 at sea, day 3 at sea. And I've been on a cruise. RFM, have you ever been on a cruise?
Once.
I love it. There's tons of entertainment, piano bar, stand-up comedians, lots of fun activities. We'll have tons of post-Mormon activities on the ship as well. And we'll keep all of you who attend, we'll keep you informed on where we're going to be. I'm happy to hang out late at night. And if people want to grab a drink and chat and talk and laugh it up, I'm all for that. We're going to do excursions and at least with me, I'll tell you what excursion I'm on. And if folks want to,
something about deep sea fishing, as I recall, you're really looking forward to that.
I am doing deep sea fishing come hell or high water, and there's a lot of high water. So, by the way, cruises are really safe. I know there's this thing in the news right now, but it was actually, it sounds like, allegedly, sounds like it's her stepbrother who ended up doing her demise.
Rebecca was on that cruise,
Yeah, by the way, Landon's been added. So
she still hasn't fully accounted for her whereabouts on that evening.
Okay, say that one more time.
I said Rebecca was on that cruise.
Oh.
And she still hasn't fully accounted for her whereabouts that evening.
Yeah, there are cameras everywhere. By the way, if you decide, you and your significant other, whoever that is, you step out onto your balcony and you decide to be a little naughty out there, just FYI, look up. There are cameras everywhere. Outside of your room itself, that ship knows exactly where you are, what you're doing, if they need to know. So
you sound like a man with experience.
I'm just telling you that I know there's cameras and I don't do things because there's cameras
on the balcony, even
on the balcony. And it starts off so if you and another person, so say it's you and your partner, you and a friend, if you guys get a cabin and you get one without a window or a balcony, it starts at $649 per person. So $1,300, and the two of you can go on a cruise. Landon Brophy has been announced now as one of the folks who's going on this cruise. Now there's 4 of us, and I am almost certain there will be other names that we add to this list.
Yeah.
And we just need to sort of pace them out and tease all of you a little bit. But there are other.
Michael J. Fox is coming.
Yeah, it's a little shaky, but yeah, he might be there.
Pardon the pun. That was really bad, Bill.
It was. Okay. So interior rooms, I'm sorry, I said $649, $670 a person. Interior rooms, you don't get a window, you don't have a balcony, but you can get a window for $855 a person. You can get a balcony for $1,080 a person, and you can get a suite. By the way, if you've ever been in one of these, they're like really tiny hotel rooms, little tiny, almost like an airplane bathroom with like a matching shower that would go with an airplane bathroom. but you can get a suite, so it looks like you're at the Holiday Inn with an ocean view if you want to get that. But I think the prices are great, and you can get 3 or 4 people into a room. I don't recommend it, but if you want to save a few dollars, you can put 4 people in a room. The bed can be split into 2 twin beds, and the couch will pull out into a bed as well.
Well, that's for me.
So there's that.
I hope the fire marshal doesn't mind.
Yeah, and you can join the Facebook group once our travel agent who's putting all this together, once they have your name and number that you've signed up for the cruise and paid, then you can join the Facebook group, and we can all sort of keep in touch with each other and let each other know sort of what's going on as new information becomes available. 7 nights. So this is an 8-day, 7-night cruise, which I think is the right amount of time. I always felt like 5 or 6 days was too little. Anything more than 7 or 8 felt like I want to be back at my house. I want to get home. And anyway, should be a fun time. Links are in the show notes, and hopefully all of you folks will go on a post-Mormon celebration cruise and hang out with the 4 of us plus some others. So we're really excited to see who does that.
Did we find out what the third port of call was?
Cabo. So yeah, Cabo San Lucas, Mazatlan, and Puerto Vallarta. So yeah,
very good. Sounds like a happening time.
It should be a blast. Because we'll be such a big group, we get to determine some of the excursions. We'll get to determine some of the activities. We'll have activities that are specific to our post-Mormon group. And man, I think this is going to be a ton of fun. I don't think you're going to want to miss this. So sign up now.
Thank you so much, Bill. By the way, I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Friday night, please join us. We're going to be doing Mormonism After Dark in formal attire. At least I'll try and be formal. You're sort of semi-formal, but it looks good on you, Bill. It looks great. I'm telling you.
Thank you.
And but what are we doing? Something about Tim Ballard.
You said this video might be a little
manifesto.
You said the video might be a little old, but I think there's a couple clips on it.
Not the video, not necessarily the video. That I'm sorry, the letter, the letter that would not end, that he kept going on and on and on about all the grievances he suffered at the hands of the Mormon Church. It was from March of this year.
Is the video new? The video's new.
I think so. I think the video's new.
In the video, I think it is cray.
Oh,
he is claiming he had heard a spiritual voice, and he happens to have it recorded, and encourages people to analyze the audio. And I want to play this Friday night and just help everybody see that this guy is I think, a narcissist with very unhealthy psychopathy. Of course, narcissist will cover that, but very unhealthy psychopathy. He has turned this around. He is the victim.
Oh yeah.
This is there are entities out there, including the LDS Church, who are going after him, headhunting him. And he is not anything he's being accused of is false allegations. He is the victim here, and he is sharing ideas and things that happened to him that I think are outside of this world. Cray.
Look at this voice, this disembodied voice that got recorded. Does it sound anything like I, Nephi, having been born of goodly parents?
I don't know what Nephi's voice was.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is pre-pubescent Nephi who, crossed the ocean, or if this is post-pubescent Nephi who's endured some trauma and his voice is probably a little more smoky, a little more cigarette tone. I don't know. But we'll play a few clips, and I think you're going to just be blown away at how far this guy's going to make himself the victim.
Well, the church, obviously the church had a reason for excommunicating him so suddenly, and it must be because the church is trafficking and sexual abuse of children in a satanic kind of way.
Yeah. So folks, you won't want to miss it. Friday.
It's the only obvious explanation, Bill.
It's the only, again, it can't be that he has been unhealthy towards lots of women within his entity. It must be that, by the way, he says that it's, what is it called? Operation. What did I send you?
Oh, shoot. Operation. It's an operation. How the operations have the code names. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I remember seeing it, but it didn't stick in my head. I didn't know there was going to be a quiz.
Yeah, you guys text so much. It's hard for me to keep up with this. I don't know if
That's how I felt like when I got to the veil in the temple. I would have paid more attention my first time through, except I didn't know there was going to be a quiz.
it was a religious term though. And it's so, again, it's just strange as hell. Let me see if I got it here.
Oh, wait.
Operation Millstone.
Millstone. Yes, yes, yes.
So he
Operation
said-
Millstone.
He
Because
said
no one is happier than those who have millstones tied about their necks and cast into the depths of the sea.
he claims it's a conspiracy theory where lots of entities with the government know that this is going on. It is called Operation Millstone. That's what the government entities call it. And
Oh, it already has a name. This is like NAM. It's the place that was called Millstone.
yeah. So Friday night, 8 p.m., you're going to want to tune in. We probably have a few things to say about Jonah Barnes too. And we also have an episode next Wednesday that you're going to put on where we dissect Jonah Barnes and a little more info on that story as things have come out and you've done a little more research.
It turns out he really is a thief. And we'll be proving that and showing a lot of other fun things next Wednesday.
Jonah Barnes, you are a thief. In fact, when you ended your Twitter account just before Radio Free Mormon went on, I think you thought we were going to do something else. Well, we still are, my friend.
We are, because I had a friend who dug it up. And even though you got the conviction taken care of, there's still a docket that shows what happened.
You
So we'll
are.
go over that.
Oh, boy. So
All right.
anyway, you won't want to miss it.
That should be a lot of fun. Anyway, till then, that's Friday, 8:00 p.m. Mountain Time. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. After that, there's going to be I'm getting together with Colby again. We're going to ride into the sunset, and we're going to do like Sean Connery and Harrison Ford at the end of the third movie. We're going to go after the third to the last chapter in The Light on Truth letter
Getting close.
by Austin. Austin's probably in an old folks home by now. We've been doing this thing so long, but we're going to get done with it. The goal is by the end of the year, there's 3 more chapters. This is one, and we'll tell you all about his sensational reasoning and writing. He's just a guy who wrote a book, I understand.
Austin, answer basic questions, Austin. Give a little more detail. Say things. When people ask you questions, don't be so surface level. If this is really your experience, you should be able to speak to it, my friend.
Yes. So join us for that. That should be Saturday night. And then again, around the corner, there'll be Monday night. I may be here. I may be phoning it in. But that's going to be the newscast at 6:00 p.m. Mountain Time. I got to take a trip down to Texas and visit some family. I mean, I'm looking forward to going down to Texas and visiting family.
Do all your exes live in Texas?
No, actually, none of them do.
Okay, good.
None of them do. But thank you. That's a great song. That was big when I was in Texas in the 80s. Everybody, thanks so much for staying up and watching the stars come out. We're in this too long. It's 2 hours and 17 and a half minutes at this point. But 572 of you true blue souls are still with us. God will bless you abundantly for your faithfulness. Thanks so much for watching tonight. Join us next week for another episode, please, of Mormonism Live. Good night.